This is Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski.
We've hit a point where the word Epstein doesn't just conjure scandal, it short-circuits people's ability to think clearly. For some, it's proof of elite corruption. For others, it's just another internet rabbit hole. But for former FBI Counterintelligence Behavioral Analysis Chief Robin Dreeke, it's something else entirely. A masterclass in how narratives, confirmation bias, and broken institutional trust create a fog so thick, even the people on the inside can't see through it. That's what we're going to be digging into today. Today's episode pulls apart that fog piece by piece with Robin. He's going to join me to talk about something most people aren't considering in the Epstein case, the psychological collapse that happens not just inside the public, but inside the very people tasked with uncovering the truth. What happens when high-ranking officials walk into an investigation expecting to find a conspiracy and don't? What did they do with that void? We also explore the bigger question, what hasn't either political party or why hasn't either political party dropped this so-called list on the other if it really exists? Is it because it's fake? Or worse, because it's real? And nobody benefits from unleashing it. This conversation isn't about defending the government, and it's not about blaming it blindly either. It's about understanding how powerful people react when they collide with uncomfortable truths or the lack of them. We dig into how bad information becomes gospel when repeated enough times, how echo chambers form in agencies just as much as on Twitter, and how the absence of hard proof becomes a narrative in itself. And we also get into something that's often ignored. What if the real scandal isn't what's on the list, but what isn't actionable? What happens? Two administrations both swear they've looked and found nothing, and the public still doesn't believe them. That's where we begin. Robin, when you saw Dan's reaction to the Epstein evidence, Dan Bajingo's reaction to the evidence or lack thereof, what did it tell you about these officials actually having the list or the process and what they find or don't find?
You know, I'm gonna go out on a limb on this one too. Yeah, I think so. I think every administration when they come in has their own confirmation bias of what they think they're going to find, and when you don't find it, you're sitting there eating crow. It's interesting because when it came to before yesterday, Dan Bongino, the deputy for the FBI right now, he gave him an interview. It was a couple of weeks ago where I saw him being interviewed about the Epstein suicide aspect of it. It was really interesting watching him talk about it because he looked really disappointed and deflated that he didn't find what he was thinking he was going to find. And it was watching him non-verbally deflated because it looked like, these people came in very excited that they're going to uncover all these things for the American people because they bought into a conspiracy theory by the other administration to hide all this.
Yeah.
And when I'm watching, at least when I watched Bongino's a couple weeks ago, looked very disappointed that he didn't find what he was looking for. Now, granted, it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It means I believe he didn't find what he was looking for. I think Bondi, same thing. I think she was expecting to find something because of hearsay, because of social media, because of a great book I read in the last couple months by Noah Harari, the guy who wrote Sapiens, and Homo Deus, he wrote Nexus. And we've talked about this one before, but just because you have more information doesn't mean it's better information.
Sure.
What he talks about in the book is the fact that, and I mean, Robert Greene talks about it again in Laws of Human Nature. When you keep consuming the same narrative and it keeps cascading on top of itself, it starts to become truth for everyone paying attention. And I think that's what Bondi probably got caught up. Again, pure hypothesis, but I think these individuals got caught up into the hypothesis that they believed that we're going to find a lot of misdeeds. And when they actually did the digging, it's not as bad as they thought it was going to be. In other words, the FBI wasn't as corrupt as they thought it was. It wasn't as, people weren't hiding stuff as bad as they thought they were. Were there individuals, like any organization, that went left of straight? Yeah. And they're gone now, and they're overreacting in some areas. So I'm just not a conspiracy guy in most cases.
Yeah.
Do they exist? Yeah, but I just because both sides had the opportunity to release stuff on the other side and no one's been able to do it, to me says, again, I'll just break it down to that.
Well,
Both sides wanted to release something that they couldn't release because I don't think there's anything there.
well, I feel like there's one of two things. There's either nothing there, like you're saying, or it's too hot for both sides.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
not. There's no one that's going to benefit here, because the question. I mean, the meme or whatever that I've been seeing out there and people's reaction is, well, if there was something on it, why didn't Biden release it if Trump was on it? Okay, that's a decent argument. Well, why is there suddenly not a list now too? When Trump's it's in his hands supposedly, and I think it goes beyond the individual who may want to use it as a political tool to release it. I mean, if I were to go down the conspiracy route and go, why did Biden not ever release it? Because there was too many Democrats on there that there was too much pressure not to, or people in higher places that simply it wasn't going to happen. I think the same thing's happening on the Republican side, where there's too many Republicans on it, or there's too many people. Take the politics out of it. There's too many people in higher places that are not even in Congress that are on this list, and there will be severe repercussions should this thing come out, or there's nothing. It's like either end of world, shattered, scorched earth scenario if it comes out, or it's like, and
I agree. I think you're spot on, Tony. I think either there's no list or there's too many people made stupid mistakes. It's one or the other. And at the end of the day, would we be shocked by either?
No.
I guess our expectations of people that are in leadership positions right now is so low that you're not shocked by anything anymore.
That's what I was going to say. Would we be shocked at all?
No.
If this list came out, I mean, if this thing came out 10, 15 years ago, I think it would have had a bigger impact. If this thing comes out tomorrow, let's say, oh, whoops, we found the list, and it comes out and there's just all sorts of names on there, people, big people in power, names that is otherwise, flawless, trusted, and oh God, like, I'm sure it'll be a bit of a shift again. Like, I didn't, it's like realizing Bill Cosby's a predator. But I don't know that I don't know, is end of the world type territory. I think, I don't even know that a lot of people, if they were on the list, would even step down if they were named on this thing, because it would just be another piece in the echo chamber of people who want to believe that people that are on that list if they did bad things, they'll believe they did bad things, or they will take it the other way and they'll believe, well, no, they're on the list, but they were just there for some other purpose. Kind of the way they do now with what has rumored to be out there about the flight log and all of that, with Trump on it or Bill Clinton on it and things of that nature. People at the end of the day are still going to believe what they want to believe. Damn the list.
I think the thing that matters the most, at least from my optic, is I don't care about a list, because who cares unless it can be tied and we can save and rescue people and take down structures and institutions, organizations that traffic in children. Because adults doing stupid. I mean, look at what Diddy got away with. And now look what Diddy was accused of doing, but he's found innocent of, is a better way to put it, right?
Sure.
And I think this is such a similar situation, just because he was accused of trafficking, and there's been people that were underage for Epstein, and so unless that list can reveal how these individuals were tied to trafficking and supporting the trafficking of children, which is going to be a stretch. All right, so these people went to the Epstein Island. Okay. They're leches. Okay. We thought they were leches anyway.
Yeah.
What's new?
Let me ask you this, and it's specifically on a counterintelligence end of things. I mean, there's been speculation about blackmail, that the list
Mhm.
raised
Sure.
concerns about national security, given who could be on it. Epstein ties to figures like Prince Andrew. Fears of compromised leaders. That could be a big thing on this list. So from a counterintelligence perspective, I mean, how would the FBI assess the risk of a figure like Epstein maintaining a blackmail list, even if it's unproven?
So it's a great question. And as you're even saying it, I'm thinking to myself, so, I mean, it's kind of like what James Comey purported he was trying to do when he let Donald Trump know in his first term that there was a Steele dossier, which was wrong.
Yeah.
But he's letting know because he's letting know, hey, a foreign government might try to use this as a lever of influence against you. And so there's that aspect of it. But blackmail and levers of influence like that only are effective if the individual that they're used against think it's a big deal. And so here's what I mean so in the counterintelligence world, you're always assessing these levers of influence over our public leaders, our policymakers, so you can try to thwart them, so you can get at least let the leader know about them, so you can mitigate them before they happen, so that it doesn't compromise national security of the United States. I actually had a case like this that there was a Russian diplomat at the United Nations that I was trying to recruit.
Hmm.
And he had this is just a great example of this. He had a son here that was an overstay, and so he's illegally here in the country because he's an overstay. And I thought, wow, what a great lever of influence. So I'm assuming he loves his son. I'm assuming he doesn't want some political fallout of having his son as an illegal alien here in the United States. So I had a source of mine approach this diplomat, without saying me involved or anything like that, and say to him, hey, it looks like you have a problem here, with your son as an overstay. I actually have a friend who's in the United States government. He can make this problem go away with you if you're willing to have a conversation with him. You know what the diplomat said?
What?
What else is new? Didn't care.
Yeah.
And you know what happens when someone doesn't care? It's no longer a lever of influence. And so here's a plus side to all this. If you're thinking in the world of national security, it's my long story for this.
Yeah.
And that is because we've been so, as a society, inoculated against our politicians doing really garbage crap like this, it's no longer a lever of influence against them if it's exposed.
Mhm.
So see what I mean? So if someone was to come out, I mean, look at all the stuff Donald Trump's been accused of doing.
Sure.
Do you think there's really a lever of influence out there that would actually impact decisions or policies he's making?
Yeah, exactly.
It's you assess it and you assess its impact. You
Mhm.
assess whether it's actually a lever or not. And the biggest thing you do also, you try to run it to ground truth.
Mhm.
Is this hearsay? Is it real? You task sources. You try to find ground truth, and that's what they didn't do in the Steele dossier when they put that together. Is they didn't run the hypothesis that was put out there down to ground truth with confirmed, reputable, confident human sources, and
Mhm.
so that's why that spun out of control, and that's a lot of reason why we are where we are today on this spectrum. Yeah, it's a big muddle puddle.
What we're left with isn't just a missing list. It's a vacuum, one that's being filled by speculation, partisan rage, and people on both sides of the aisle trying to weaponize a scandal that may either be too big to expose or too empty to matter. Maybe that's the point. Robin Dreeke laid it out with sharp clarity. Not everything is a conspiracy. But sometimes the hunger for one is powerful. Powerful enough to distort everything. When leaders walk into a case convinced they'll uncover monsters in the basement and find water pipes instead, and disappointment becomes a story of its own. And it's a warning, because the real danger here isn't just who may or may not be on a list. It's what happens when truth becomes irrelevant, when everyone, from politicians to the public, is more interested in confirming their suspicions than dealing with complexity. And if this list really does exist, as Robin pointed out, and still hasn't been leaked by either party, that tells you one thing. It's either too damn explosive or too damn useful to keep buried. We also touched on a critical undercurrent here: blackmail, levels of influence, national security risk. But what happens when no one's ashamed anymore? What happens when public figures are so desensitized, so scandal-proof, or so scandal-ridden, depending how you look at it, that there's nothing left to threaten them with? Robin said it best. You can't blackmail someone who no longer cares what you think. That might be the most revealing line of this entire mess. So if there's a list, it's either locked away because it would set fire to the system that produced it, or it's just a scattered pile of half-truths with no fuel left to burn. Either way, it's not coming out. And even if it did, would anyone care? That's where we're at. Not with closure, but with saturation. A system so filled with rot that nobody notices the smell anymore. And that's why we keep doing this, because silence doesn't mean resolution. Sometimes it's just the sound of everyone hoping we'll stop looking. Tell me what your thoughts are in the comment section of this video on YouTube. If you're not already on YouTube, please check us out there. Search Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski and hit subscribe so you don't miss any of our coverage on this and the many cases we cover for you here. And hit subscribe on the podcast platforms, wherever it is you may be listening, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, whatever. Hit subscribe so you don't miss any of it. And do check us out on YouTube and comment. Love to hear your thoughts on this new revelation in this crazy case. Until next time, I'm Tony Brueski. We'll talk again real soon.
If true crime is your obsession, we've got you covered. Press subscribe now to the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today for non-stop coverage, expert insights, and in-depth analysis.